The notary's pen was still wet when I found the second copy tucked inside the lining of Marcus's briefcase. Not hidden exactly, just placed where someone confident would place something they never expected to be found. That was a Thursday. I remember because I had made lamb that night, his favorite, and he came to the table smiling like a man who had just closed the best deal of his life. He just didn't know. I already held the receipt. Marcus and I had been married 11 years. We built everything together, or so I believed. The house in Ashford Hills, the investment account at Meridian Wealth, the small commercial property on Delancey Street that we'd bought as a rental when things were going well. I managed the household finances, he managed the business side, and somewhere in that arrangement, I had made the oldest mistake a capable woman can make. I trusted the division. I wasn't naive. I was busy. There's a difference, though it took me longer than it should have to understand that to a certain kind of man, those two things look identical. The second copy I found was a quitclaim deed. My name had been removed from the Delancey Street property 6 weeks earlier. The signature on the line marked Diana Mercer was not mine. I stood in the bedroom closet for minutes. I know because I watched the clock on the shelf above the shoe rack. 4 minutes of absolute stillness. Then I folded the document back exactly as I'd found it, replaced it in the lining, and walked downstairs to finish setting the table. Smells incredible, Marcus said from the hallway. I added rosemary this time, I said. Sit down. It's almost ready. The original signal had come 3 days earlier. From a woman named Cecile Oduya, our accountant for 7 years. A precise and private person who had always struck me as deeply uncomfortable with ambiguity. She called my personal cell, not the house line. That was unusual. Diana, she said, I want to be careful about how I say this. There's a discrepancy in the Delancey records that I flagged for Marcus 2 months ago. He told me it had been corrected. When I pulled the county register last week for year-end, it hadn't been. I thought you should know before I proceed with the filing. I asked her to send me the register. Pull. She did within the hour, with a note that said only, I hope I'm wrong. She wasn't. The Delancey Street property had been transferred into a single-member LLC, Veritas Holdings, registered in Delaware with Marcus listed as sole member. The transfer date was 6 weeks prior. The document bore my signature. I had never signed anything related to Veritas Holdings. I had never heard of Veritas Holdings. I had not been present at any notarization in the past 3 months. I sat with that information for a full evening before I did anything. I cooked, I read. I answered 2 emails from my sister about Thanksgiving plans. And underneath all of that, something very quiet and very cold began to organize itself in the center of my chest. The following morning I drove to the county recorder's office on Garfield Avenue and requested the full instrument history on the Delancey property. The clerk, a young man named Trevor, who clearly sensed he was handing over something unpleasant, printed the pages without comment. The deed transfer was notarized by a woman named Sandra Poole, a notary public with an office on Westbrook Drive. I looked her up. Her listed phone number connected to an answering service. Her website had been registered 8 months earlier. Her LinkedIn had 41 connections. I photographed every page of the instrument history with my phone. Then I drove home and called my sister's husband, who is a real estate attorney in a different county. I told him I needed a referral to a litigation attorney in my area, someone experienced in property fraud. He gave me 2 names. I called the first, Eleanor Vass of Vass and Carrington, and had an appointment the following afternoon. Eleanor was 53, angular, and the kind of woman who takes notes in a private shorthand that no one else can read. I laid the documents on her desk. She reviewed them without speaking for 6 minutes. The notarization is the exposure point, she said finally. If Sandra Poole can be shown to have notarized a signature she did not witness, that's a criminal matter, not just civil. Have you spoken to your husband? No, I said. Good, don't. Over the next 9 days, I continued to live in the house with Marcus as though nothing had changed. This required a discipline I hadn't known I possessed. I made coffee in the mornings. I asked about his meetings. I laughed at the right moments. I was a perfect performance of myself, and it cost me something I have never fully calculated. Meanwhile, Eleanor's office was moving. They subpoenaed Sandra Poole's notary log. They contacted the Delaware Secretary of State for the Veritas Holdings formation documents. They ran a forensic handwriting analysis on the signature. The analyst, a man named Dr. Philip Reardon, who had testified in 41 state and federal cases, confirmed within 72 hours that the signature on the quitclaim deed was not consistent with my authentic signing samples. I also placed a voice-activated recorder in Marcus's home office. I want to be precise here. I placed it in a room I co-owned, in a state that permits single-party recording, after consulting Eleanor about the legal parameters. It was not a rash act. It was a planned one. On day 6, I retrieved the recorder while Marcus was at his gym. I transferred the audio to a secure folder on a laptop he had never touched. Most of it was unremarkable. A conference call with a logistics vendor, a long conversation with his brother about a college football game. Then there was the call from a man he addressed only as Ray. The LLC is clean, Marcus told Ray. Diana doesn't know a thing about LLC. I've already started moving the rental income into the Veritas account. By spring, when I file for separation, it won't appear in any of our shared assets. Ray laughed. She's going to think you're generous for leaving her the house. She's going to be grateful, Marcus said. That's the idea. I listened to that 47 seconds of audio 4 times. Then I saved a backup copy to a secure cloud drive, emailed a copy to Eleanor, and deleted nothing. The cue came on a Tuesday morning. Marcus had mentioned the previous week that he was expecting a wire transfer for a new tenant on LLC, a restaurant group signing a 5-year lease. He was in an exceptionally good mood. He suggested we have dinner somewhere nice on Friday to celebrate a new chapter, he said. Things are really coming together. They really are, I said. I called Eleanor that afternoon. We had everything we needed. The forensic report, the notary log which showed Sandra Poole had been in a different county on the day of the supposed notarization, the recorded call, the Veritas formation documents showing Marcus as sole member, a second deed transfer discovered in subsequent records review where he had attempted to restructure the Meridian Wealth account beneficiary designation without my signature, an action the brokerage had actually flagged and suspended pending verification. He hadn't known about that flag. The brokerage had sent the notice to a mailing address, not email. The letter had arrived at our house. I had opened it, as I opened all our mail, 3 weeks earlier. I had placed it in a folder. I had not mentioned it. Eleanor said, I can have the sheriff's process server ready by Thursday morning. Do you want to be present? I did. Friday dinner never happened. On Thursday morning at 10:45, I was already in the kitchen when Marcus came downstairs in his workout clothes. He looked comfortable, rested. He poured coffee and asked if I wanted anything from the bakery on Clement Street. The doorbell rang at 10:52. Marcus answered it. I heard 2 male voices he didn't recognize, and then a pause, and then his voice saying, "What is this?" I walked to the foyer. The process server handed him the civil complaint, fraud, forgery, and breach of fiduciary duty, along with a temporary restraining order freezing all assets associated with Veritas Holdings and the LLC property pending litigation. Behind the process server stood a deputy from the county sheriff's office, there to ensure the restraining order was received and acknowledged. Marcus turned to look at me. I said nothing for a moment. Then, Eleanor Vass will be your point of contact. I'd advise you not to call me directly. His face moved through 3 expressions in about 4 seconds. Disbelief, calculation, and then something I hadn't expected, a kind of exhausted recognition. As if some part of him had always known this was possible, and had simply bet against it. Diana, the Meridian account flag, I said. They sent a letter. I have it. He sat down on the stairs. Just sat down, coffee still in his hand. I picked up my coat and my bag from the hook by the door. The lamb was better with rosemary, by the way, I said. You never mentioned it, but I noticed. The civil case moved faster than either Eleanor or I anticipated. In part because Sandra Poole, facing a criminal referral for notarizing a document she had not witnessed, agreed to cooperate fully with investigators within 2 weeks of being served. She confirmed that Marcus had paid her $1,800 in cash to backdate and notarize the quitclaim deed. She had the bank withdrawal record. She had a text exchange. Marcus's attorney attempted to negotiate a settlement before the case went to discovery. Eleanor declined on my behalf. The LLC property was returned to joint ownership by court order. The Veritas LLC was dissolved. Marcus was ordered to account for all rental income diverted to the Veritas account over the preceding 9 months, a total of just over $41,000, and to repay it to our joint estate. The criminal referral against Sandra Poole was forwarded to the district attorney's office. Marcus was named as a co-subject of the investigation, but the layer that mattered most to me was quieter than any of that. 3 weeks into the litigation, Eleanor filed a motion to have the full case record, including the notarized fraud, the recorded call, and the financial diversion submitted to the state bar's disciplinary board. Marcus was a licensed real estate broker. His license was the instrument of his credibility. Without it, the professional reputation he had spent 15 years constructing had no foundation. The board opened a review. He was notified by certified mail. I am not going to tell you that justice is always clean. It isn't. It takes longer than you think. It costs more than you expect. There are mornings when you drive to an attorney's office and wonder whether the version of your life you're fighting to reclaim is even worth the fight. But there are also evenings when you sit in your own kitchen, the kitchen you stayed in, the house that stayed yours, and you understand with absolute precision what it means to have made a choice under pressure and executed it without flinching. That Thursday night, after the process server left and Marcus had driven away in a car I'd never liked, I opened a bottle of Malbec that had been sitting in the rack since our anniversary 2 years prior. I poured one glass. I stood at the kitchen window and watched the light change over the yard. I had not screamed. I had not begged. I had not given him a single moment of chaos to use against me. Cecile had sent me a message that afternoon. I hope it went the way it was supposed to. I wrote back, it did. Thank you for making the call. She replied with nothing but a period. I understood exactly what she meant. There is a version of betrayal that ends in collapse. I had seen it happen to women I respected, women who lost months, sometimes years, to the grief of being underestimated by someone they loved. I did not collapse. Not because I am harder than those women, but because somewhere in those 4 minutes in the closet, watching the clock above the shoe rack, I made a decision that had nothing to do with Marcus at all. I decided that the quality of my response would be the only thing in that situation I could fully control. And I controlled it completely. They assume your love is the same as your surrender. It is not. It never has been. And if you are very still and very careful, you can make the difference between those two things. The last lesson they ever teach you